ॐ नारायणः परो व्यक्तात् अण्डमव्ययसम्भवम् अण्डस्यान्तस्त्विमे लोकाः सप्तद्वीपा च मेदिनी। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। Last time we saw how the person of knowledge, Kritsnavit, the one who knows everything. Why? Brahman being everything, everything being Brahman. Therefore, then the person who knows Brahman knows everything. Everything being non-separate from Brahman, the knower of Brahman is the knower of everything. And so here, very beautifully, it says that the person who knows Brahman may not cause disturbance. It's a advice to the person who knows Brahman to not to cause disturbance in the minds of who? Abrahmavit, means the one who doesn't know Brahman. Meaning the one who doesn't know Brahman will be having lots of what is that called? Agenda, lots of places to go, people to see, things to do. And so don't disturb their mindset by telling them, no, you should study Vedanta. They are not prepared to study Vedanta, and so they will be neither here nor there. In fact, they will become miserable. At least now they were striving for some things, hoping to get some things, and yes, they were frequently disappointed, but after a while they were okay. They somehow got themselves going again, and then they were doing some more things, and then you tell them what? Oh, there is no need to study at all. There is no need to work at all. You should be studying. Why are you going here? Why are you pursuing that? But that would cause a big disturbance in their lives naturally. And so therefore, may the person of knowledge not cause disturbance in the buddhi of the people who do not know any better. So then this is what we studied last time. Then Adi Shankara asks a question which is a segue to verse number 30. Katham punaha karmani adhikritena ajnena mumukshuna karma kartavyam. So if the person who doesn't know Brahman but yet is seeking some kind of a freedom from something or the other, it's not clear what is freedom is not clear. That I am the nature of freedom is not clear. My swarupa is moksha is not clear. But somehow the person feels bound and trying to get out of a sense of, wants to be free of a sense of insecurity, wants to be free from death, wants to be free from old age, wants to be free from isolation, wants to be free from a whole number of things. And this is the situation because it's very amorphous. So then this desire for freedom has frittered their pursuits in a myriad number of ways. So they are busy pursuing this, that and the other. Now, as a Brahmavit, I am not allowed, according to Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, to tell them, no, you can't do this. You must come and study. I am not allowed to tell them that. And at the same time, I must encourage what they are doing. So where is the pathway for these people, the masses, who are what? Who are all the time doing something or the other, but at the same time they too are seekers of freedom, whether they know it or not. What is the pathway for them to come over to this side of contemplation, meditation? And even if we were not to go that far, there is a what is that called? Contemplation, meditation may be a stretch, but just sitting down, breathing, being one with oneself, taking some time, all this. How do you get them to on this side? How do you get them away from this rat race of catch, kill, eat, destroy, and then it all starts again? And then the answer, Adi Shankara says, is given in the next verse. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasyaadhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigatajvaraha. Of course, Lord Krishna directs everything back at Arjuna because really it's all about oneself. And so he says, Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya. Sanyasya. Sanyasya means having renounced, having dedicated. What are you dedicating? What are you renouncing? What are you surrendering? You're surrendering all the actions. Sarvani karmani mai sanyasya. Sarvani karmani. All the karmas mai sanyasya. Give it to me. Your karmas you are not in charge of. You are not in charge of your karmas. So therefore what do? You give it to me. Give it to me means what? Just say, I am doing this for Bhagavan's sake, not for my own sake. And this is a very clever thing to do. And why is it a clever thing to do? It's a very clever thing to do simply because we are not in charge of the results of action. Even though we are deluded to think that we are operating under the wrong notion. We are under the misapprehension of being not only the authors of action but also the generators of the results thereof. So this is not true. We may be the authors of action to a certain extent, but we are not the generators of the results of action. This is already there in the famous verse of the Bhagavad Gita. What is that one? So, karmani eva adhikarahate ma phaleshu kadachana. You have only right over action, but the results, you cannot control the results, Arjuna was told earlier in the last chapter. And so the Lord Krishna here seems to be referring to that and then going one step ahead and saying, it's not enough to dedicate the results of action to me or to acknowledge that the results of action come from me, Ishvara. Why? Because again we are reproducing a disconnect, a kind of alienation we are reinforcing. How? Because I am the one who does the action and somebody else gets the credit, somebody else is in charge of the results. What kind of a thing is this? If somebody else is in charge of result and that person I have to call Ishvara, so all the time I become what? A begging person. A beggar for the results of give me this. Give me a color TV. Give me this. Give me that. And let me have this. And all the time I beg for certain results. The problem with that is the victim mindset. The more I beg, that means what? I sense myself as powerless. I am an actor, but then I have no say over the results of action. What kind of a thing is this? Or what kind of a justice is this? Where is this, where is the justice in this? There is no justice in this at all. And so therefore what? I become a victim. Because where is this Bhagavan? I can't see, I don't know. Somehow this Bhagavan is in charge of giving me my results of action. But then so I have to keep praying to this Bhagavan to make the results nice, sweet. And don't give me bitter results. Give me sweet results. All these things. And so if I am a yachaka means a begging person. If I'm a yachaka and a begging person, that means what? I'm always looking up and asking for something from this God, Ishvara, whatever it is, who I don't even know where this person is, he or she, whoever it is, I don't even know. I keep being at the mercy of Ishvara, and so that is a very victimy position. Already feeling kind of disconsolate, already feeling disenchanted and hopeless from engaging with the world and not being able to get what I want. And then what is the final straw? The final straw is keeping on begging for what is already my due, which is what? The results of my own actions. Why do I have to beg you? If it's my own actions, it should come. But no, it doesn't come. It's maddening. It comes in the next life. What use is that to me? That's what I think right now. And so here is a master stroke by which one gets out of this victim mindset. The victim mindset is the hallmark of samsara. If you ask the one-line definition of samsara, where one feels out of control, that is the victim mindset. That's what it is. Somebody is in charge. Somebody is going to tell me what to do. And I keep waiting for somebody to tell me what to do. Why will anybody tell you what to do? And many people think that gurus are for the sake of telling people what to do, as though we have no other job. This is what it is, Tell me what to do, tell me what not to do. And that's not a very good position to be in, because it makes one give up even the sense of agency, the vyavaharika sense of agency that one has, and then think that somebody is going to save me and get into this victim mindset along with a savior psychology, both of which are very detrimental to one's being in general and to one's pursuit of freedom and moksha in particular. And so the way out of it is very brilliantly said. Why just stop at considering me the karma phaladata? Lord Krishna asks. Why just Bhagavan is the giver of the fruits of action? There is no doubt in that. The Bhagavad Gita makes a big pitch about that, and even the Upanishads talk about Ishvara as what is that? Karmadhyakshaha. Karmadhyakshaha means karma phala data. Shvetashvatara Upanishad uses the word karmadhyakshaha, the one that is in charge of karma and the results of karma. So that is basically this kind of a mindset, which is a fact. This is a fact that yes, Ishvara is the giver of actions, but then it is not a fact that I am an actor. That's also not a fact. So this is both Ishvara as the giver of the fruits of action and I as the actor. This kind of a combination does not bode well for my self-esteem, for my psychological, emotional well-being. It does not bode well at all. So what to do? What to do means what? So therefore, now I have to see that this is the beauty of this verse. Now I have to see into my actions themselves. And what do the actions say? When I see that, when I consider myself as an actor, as an agent of action, this argument that I am an actor quickly falls apart. It decomposes. Why? Because behind every action, there is the presence of Ishvara. I did it with my own hands. Well, did you make your own hands? No, they were already there. Okay, bingo. What else to say? And then, no, I did it with my own buddhi, my own mind. Did you make your mind? No, much less your mother or father. Nobody knows how to make buddhi, how to make the mind, how to make the intellect. Ishvara's given intellect, Ishvara given karmendriyas, organs of actions, Ishvara given sense organs, Ishvara given abilities, Ishvara given challenges, which are then converted into some kind of special abilities, and Ishvara given everything. So, what is mine? What is my contribution in all this? Just a whole lot of confusion. That's my only contribution. There is no contribution at all. So then, if I understand this, first step is to understand that I am not the doer. And this doesn't need Vedanta, really. Even without Vedanta, I can understand I am not the doer because there is a higher power, a force, because of whose presence as what? As the cause of the universe, is responsible for this body, is responsible for the mind, is responsible for the actions as well. So is behind all the actions. So this is very easy to see. All one needs is a dollop of bhakti, devotion. And then one can see this very clearly. That this is just all that there is. And so then we take this realization a step further. And what is that further step? Yes, I know you are, I know that I'm not the actor, but I'm frequently deluded into thinking that I'm the actor, and therefore what will I do? I am going to consciously just get into a meditative state before every action and renounce the authorship. I'm going to renounce the authorship of action completely. And renounce means I have to give it to somebody. It can't just be floating around. So therefore, what will I do? I will say, Ishvara is doing it. I am just an instrument. Ishvara is doing it. Now you see, now there is no victim mindset at all. Why? Because I'm doing my best, but Ishvara is behind the action. So there is no victim mindset, because if Ishvara is doing the action and Ishvara is responsible for the results of action, it completely absolves me. I can just dust off the kartritvam. I can dust off the doership and walk off into the sunrise, not sunset, because sunrise means rise of knowledge, growing clarity. This is the beauty of it. Mayi sarvani karmani, all actions, all means what? Secular, religious, everything. Not just, after the puja I say, this is whatever I have done is basically for you, I dedicate all the actions to you. No, not just after the puja. After every mundane action, going to work, eating, drinking, walking, talking, driving, doing this, doing that, after everything, I just say, it's all you, it's all you, it's all you. This is all you. I humbly am giving up all my actions to you. And so, Mayi sarvani karmani sanyasya. How? Adhyatma chetasa. Adhyatma chetasa means with a mind dwelling on itself. Adhyatma. Frequently, the mind is not dwelling on itself. One is not with oneself. In fact, very rarely is even one present. One's mind is all over the place. And why should we say anything about the mind? One is all over the place. This so-called multitasking is just multi-stress, after which you need to take a multivitamin. That's all it is. And this multitasking means I don't do anything properly. Not even one thing is done properly by me. This is what is the so-called multitasking. Multitasking means what? I go here, I do a little bit, then I'm half-heartedly doing something there at the same time, and then this is what is happening. I'm listening to music with the ear, ear pods, and then I am also listening to the Vedanta class with some other device, and like this, nothing goes in. And so like this, Even when one is in an office meeting or very important something one has to do, one's mind is not available for oneself. So here, Adhyatma Chetasa means somebody who is, who is tranquil. It means many things. It means many, many things. It means the one who is who is free of lots of thoughts and lots of agenda. There is a certain tranquility. There is a certain, what is that called? Availability of the mind. And Adhyatma Chetas means the one who has Viveka, the one who has the discriminating power between what is it that I really want and what am I pursuing. Is there some kind of a jarring non-connection between what I am pursuing and what I really want? So this is called Viveka, which is Adhyatma Chetas. The one who has Viveka is called Adhyatma Chetas. So the one who has this kind of a inward dwelling mind, a mind that is just full of itself rather than the whole world's cares. Because what happens usually is that we have kind of an outward facing awareness. The awareness is very much outwardly focused. What's happening over there? What are they doing over there? Why? What's going on over here? Oh, a party? How come I wasn't invited? In fact, I was told not to come. Oh my God, I feel so left out. But then I have all this work to do here. What to do? It's very clear what to do. What to do? Mind your own business. That is the first tenet of Swadharma. Mind your own business. Whatever you're supposed to do, do. Do properly, do happily. This is what is dedicating what is to be done to Ishvara. I get out of the range of ragadveshas and then come back, fall back on myself. Fall back on myself in such a deep way that this is what is called minding my own business. What is there for me to do? How should I accomplish it? Okay, this needs to be done. Okay, these are the things in the way. Let me resolve this. How can I resolve this? Where to seek help? Where should I focus on? What needs to be sacrificed in order to do this properly? Because really, this will not come. This knowledge does not demand sacrifice. The ragadveshas have to be beheaded at the altar of the Upanishads. Really. The ragadveshas, the strong preferences and prejudices, have to be beheaded at the altar of the Shastra. The Shastra demands the death of the ragadveshas before it will speak to us. This is what the Shastra demands. And so here the person has become a little more thoughtful, self-aware, you might say, inward-looking, not introverted, but inward-looking, not constantly focusing on what's happening over there, what's happening over here. Oh, this regime fell, that regime came up. This will be there no matter what. And if we think of the world news, it will drive us crazy. This is what happens. Look at any country's news can drive you crazy. If you look at the world news in general, it is a recipe for insanity. Pujya Swamiji, in the olden days, in the 60s and 70s, I think, this was a story from the late 60s, he was very much interested in news. He used to love reading the newspaper. He used to love discussing it with his friends and other swamis, everything. And it's such an innocuous, habit, reading the newspaper. One would think, yes, I'm well informed. What's wrong with that? Nothing was wrong with that, but Swamiji felt that whenever he read the newspaper, he would just become kind of dejected, like he would be down, like, oh my God, what is this? I was fine till now, and I have this kind of a strange kind of apathy coming on as soon as I have finished reading the newspaper. there is no satisfaction in reading it. And he saw some patterns. And what are the patterns? Somebody died. Some famous person died, obituary. And then some other big famous person had a baby or got married. And that's also in the classified sections. They are announcing the engagement, they are announcing the birth of the baby. And in the middle, it's all these things. Some regime fell, another regime is being born. One dictator is slaying so many people. Another dictator was caught and shot in close range, and then now they are taking over. The country is very happy and they are taking over the reins of the country after so many years. All these things are there. So he decided to go on a newspaper upavasa, a newspaper fast. For 1 year, he says, I'm not going to read the newspaper, he said. And 1 year passed, and then very excitedly he went to the place where they keep the newspapers in the ashram and said, oh my God, I have not taken the newspaper at all. Let's see what's happening, let's see what I missed. And then he was dejected again because the same headlines from 365 days ago were being repeated all over again. And what were those headlines? Somebody died, somebody born, some kind of somebody got mugged and assaulted on the highway, and somebody else got their car stolen, carjacking with a baby in it, and now there is a red alert everywhere to find the baby, and their hostage negotiations are going on because they want the baby returned to the parents unharmed. Like this, same thing that happened a year ago, same exact things. And then that's when Swamiji realized that this is just a path of down the rabbit hole called samsara. It's not going to come to a good end. This is the viveka I ought to have. And getting away from this habit of being outwardly focused into other people's lives and other people's situations. And sometimes it's very sneaky because the thing is, we rationalize it. We say, well, I have every right to know about the other person's life. Why? Because I'm related to them. Because I want them. I want to do this. I want to do that. All these things. But that's not necessarily true. These are stories we tell ourselves. So Swadharma, the definition of Swadharma, one's own dharma, means minding one's own business. Just centering. What do I have to do today? Where have I been placed? How am I supposed to fulfill this obligation, this duty? How do I do this in a cheerful way? This is what is Adhyatma Chetasa. And then, as though this is not big enough, the Lord also adds Nirashihi Bhutva Nirmamo Bhutva. Nirashihi means in order to be this person with Adhyatma Chetasa, Adhyatma Chetas, with the buddhi that is inward focusing. What do I have to do? Nirashihi. Nirashihi means the one who is not interested in many things. Tyaktashihi. So Tyaktashihi means the one who has given up passions, strong passions, prejudices. Oh, but what is this life without passion? Well, sometimes one is used to too much drama. One thinks drama means I'm alive. Drama means everything is okay. Not true. A life of no drama, when you drop the D in drama, what is left? Only Rama. Much nicer. Very tranquil life. Focusing on Rama is a much more tranquil life than focusing on drama. So when you drop the drama, all there is Rama. And the drama is enticing. That's why we go to the movies. One goes to the movies to see drama. Somebody, there is a car chase, somebody is running, somebody is chasing, somebody has taken away something that belongs to somebody else, somebody has fought with somebody. This is all the drama. And that drama we have enough in the life itself without needing to go to the movies. But I guess it's not enough. That's why one also sees the same things in the movies. And this way, one makes certain to tell oneself that if I'm participating in the drama, if I can feel the drama, then that means I'm alive. Not true. The drama is an addiction, and it's simultaneously an addiction and a distraction to being inward, to having a rich inward life. That takes some cultivation. In the beginning, one feels lonely, one feels distracted, but when you persevere, then the rich inner life one can cultivate, where one is very tranquil and happy with one's own company and doesn't want to or have to do anything to manufacture this kind of a companionship, or for the sake of getting something or the other. So this kind of a dedication, nirashihi means without much desire. Nirashihi, tyaktashihi. And then nirmamaha means mama bhavaha cha nirgataha yasya saha tvam. So mama bhavaha nirgataha. Mama bhava means this is mine. So the half of the life is gone trying to get what one doesn't have, yoga, and the other half of the life is gone protecting what one already has gathered. These two become very big impediments to gaining the truth of myself, to understanding the wholeness, which is the vision of the Shastra. So therefore, nirashihi bhutva, I go on a fast, ragadvesha fast. I do not keep trying to fulfill the ragadveshas all the time. I let go of that where? At the same altar which is Bhagavan. At the same altar where I dedicated my kartrutvam, my do worship, I give this also up. Nirashihi nirmamo. Nirmama means minus. Minus, not M-I-N-U-S. M-Y-N-E-S-S. Not quite a word, but we are making it into a word. Minus, that thing we let go of. And we get into the place of living for everybody else, living with everybody else, living for everybody else, and we make the purpose of life a little greater than just me, my family, and food and work and entertainment. And that's most people's lives. But that is not the doorway to coming out of samsara. The doorway to coming out of samsara is to expand what is mine. And if I expand what I consider to be mine, then also I become nirmama. If everything is mine, nothing is mine. Or I straight away say nothing is mine, everything is yours, and that is also okay. Nirashihi nirmamo bhutva. And then what? Yudhyasva. Here, this Lord Krishna does not leave the opportunity to tell Arjuna, therefore you have to fight. Meaning what? You are not a jnani. The jnani can be doing whatever they want, but you need to be in action right now. Why? Because this is what you need. You're not a jnani. You can't afford to just sit and not do anything. You have to be in the world, and you have to fight. After giving me the authorship of the combat, and then you just do it in my name. Nimittamatram bhava savyasachin, we will see in the 11th chapter. Very beautiful. You just be an instrument of my doing. And in the 11th chapter he says, what are you crying about? Don't you see? I have given you this divine vision. You are seeing the whole universe and you are seeing all my forms. And don't you see that the Kauravas, the people on the other side, the inimical tyrants, they have already delivered themselves to me. Don't you see that? Don't you see them in the flaming jaws of death? Don't you see them? And if you see them, then why are you doubting what needs to be done? And why are you even thinking that you are the one doing it? He's going to say this in a very, very blatant way, blunt way. He's going to say and make this obvious. You're not doing anything, Arjuna. Look, all these people are delivering themselves into my mouth, which is now a mouth of flames. In like patangaha. Patangaha means the moths. Like the moths deliver themselves into the candlelight, one after the other. They are attracted to it helplessly. Similarly, all these wrongdoers are helplessly delivering themselves into my mouth, which is just the raging flame of the minion, the Lord of Death. And so they are themselves delivering themselves. So what do you have to do with all this? You are not the doer. So therefore, you don't think this is your battle. You don't think that you want some kind of an outcome and you have to have this outcome. Let go. And then becoming Vigata Jwaraha. Vigata Jwaraha can have two meanings. The meaning Adi Shankara gives is Vigata Santapaha. Vigata Santapaha means the one who is free of torment, the one who is no longer tormented, free of torment, free of pain, free of sorrow, etc. This is the one, like torment, anguish, because Arjuna here is very, very anguished. So the one who is free of anguish is called Vigata Jwaraha. One meaning. And that's the meaning Adi Shankara takes. But then we can also give a literal meaning. The literal meaning of jwara is a fever. Jwara is sickness, fever. So Vigata Jwara means from whom the fever has departed. So Vigataha Jwaraha Yasmat Saha. So that person from whom the feverishness has departed. So what is this fever? Samsara fever. And this samsara fever means the frenzied, anguished actions, and then dealing with the reactions and responding to the reactions and responding to the results of action. And then more feverishness and more responding to the results of action. Like this one has to do. This is what one keeps doing. And samsara is nothing but a sickness, a feverish, frenzied idea about life and about my place in it, and what I'm supposed to do is to keep getting. I have to become a go-getter, so I have to go, I have to get, I have to go there again, I have to get. This is what is keeping you there, and up till now you have been fighting all wars from this place. I have to get victory, I have to get fame, I have to get name, I have to do this, I have to do that, and let me do this, let me do that, let me go here, let me go there. All these things that, this Arjuna has kept on doing, this is what I have to do, he is thinking. Here, give up the feverishness of focusing on the outcome, and then please... and Vigata Shoko Bhava means please be free of sorrow and anguish, thinking this is mine, because the anguish is connected to the feeling, this is mine, and this is me, this is mine. This is what gives anguish, because other person also is thinking this is mine, and so therefore a fight breaks out, and anguish and santapa takes place, jwara takes place. And the more I see my thing, whatever I consider to be mine, in danger, the more I fight for it and the more frenzied I become. So stop that, and then you just fight, get up and fight, yuddhasva. And then introducing the next verse, Adi Shankara says, Yat etat matam karma kartavyam iti sangramanam uktam tat tatha. So, sapramanam uktam tat tatha. So here means yat etad matam. So whatever the actions need to be performed has been explained with Sapramanam with authority. Who is the authority? Ishvara is the authority. Ishvara is the one who is the pramana karta, who is the giver of the Shabda pramana, and Ishvara is only saying what? Please do this, this is how the whole thing is. Matam karma means keeping in view the doctrine about karma and how the karma has to be accomplished has been explained in the last section with authority. This is what it says. And it's going to continue to be explained. And what is that? Verse 31 and 32 again are comparative verses concluding this whole section. And then what is that? They conclude this whole section about action and the results of action, and what is the dharma of the people who don't know that they are they are Brahman, and how to come to this path through action itself. How, in other words, do you gain actionlessness through action, so to speak? Ye me matamidam nityam अनुतिष्ठन्ति मानवाः श्रद्धावन्तो न सूयन्तः मुच्यन्ते तेऽपि कर्मभिः. Beautiful verse again. Ye me matamidam, matam means shasanam, this teaching of mine. Anutishtanti manavaha, ye manavaha me matam idam anutishtanti nityam. So those beings, those human beings who follow this teaching constantly, how? Follow it not with a rote idea. Shraddhavantaha. Shraddhavantaha means with a lot of shraddha in the heart. Anasuyantaha. Anasuyantaha means without any feeling of envy. Envy towards whom? Towards Ishvara. We'll explain that. Let us just see the actions. Shraddhavantaha, filled with reverence and devotion and free from envy. Muchyante. Muchyante means they too will be freed. From what? Karma bhihi. From papa and punya. They also will be freed from papa and punya. So therefore, they also should be, they also will reach me, because they will understand what is to be done. They already understand what is to be done and what is not to be done. And they are following what is to be done. Even though they want to do what? Of course they want to do what is not to be done. That is far more interesting, that is far more tempting, that is what the one that is more obvious. What I want to be do, but what should not be done is more obvious in any given situation than what is to be done. That's not too obvious. But what is to be done is like a silent way in which I master the raga dveshas. Before I know it, the raga dveshas are gone. In their space is an authority. Is an authority who is completely dedicated to the Shastra and who the raga dveshas dare not disturb. This is what one has to get to the place of. Ye me madamitam idam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavantaha anasuyantaha muchyante tepi karmabhihi. They are also released from this papa and punya, the actions and the results of action. This whole connection between action and results of action, they are released from. Bhashya. Ye me madiyam idam matam अनुतिष्ठन्ति अनुवर्तन्ते मानवाः मनुष्याः श्रद्धावन्तः श्रद्धदानाः अनुसूयन्तः असूया च मयि गुरौ वासुदेवे अकुर्वन्तः मुच्यन्ते ते अपि एवं भूताः कर्मभिः धर्माधर्माख्यैः. So very beautiful verse again here. It says that ye me madiyam idam matam anutishtanti. Those who take my teaching seriously and follow them. They take my teaching seriously and they follow them. What are the teachings? Karma yoga here is the teaching. Right now, this is what the teaching is. Of course, the vision is also included, but Prakritam, what is the context here? The context that is here is Karma Yoga. So, the teachings of Karma Yoga, those who are able to, follow very, very, seriously. They follow it seriously means what? They can, they don't have any kind of an elbow room to just say, okay, this one day I'm not going to be a karma yogi. I'm just going to do whatever I want. One day off for karma yoga. No. One day off for karma yoga means what? There is no such thing like that, because karma yoga is you. It's a lifestyle that you have committed to. It's a committed lifestyle. So, just like you don't say 5 days of the week I am married and 2 days off, I'm no longer married. No, you can't do that. Marriage is a commitment. You are committed to this person for the length of your life, and then you can't say, you know what, let's just have it like this. 5 days of the week we are married and 2 days of the week it's off. Can't do that. So and same thing with your job also, you can't do that. You may have 2 days holiday, but you still are an employee there. You still have to have certain codes of conduct. You can't just say, this is my free time, I can do whatever I want. And so what will you do? Let's see what I feel like doing this weekend. I'll post some racist and sexist messages on my Facebook account. This is Madhiyam, my Facebook account, my posts, my opinion. It's a free country. And then what? I'll just do it. Why? Because I feel like it. And the employer can't say anything. Why? Because it's holiday. And I'm not doing it on the office computer. Where am I doing it? On my private home computer. So I post some terrible memes, and then what? I go into work on Monday and they say, what? Here, you have been relieved of your duty. What? Why? Because of these posts. What do you mean? They are my private opinions. Well, we don't want, our company does not espouse these views. And we don't want any employee to reflect these kinds of views and say that they are attached to our company. Therefore, we are relieving you of your duties. Happens or not? So many times we hear in the news. This happens. So you cannot say I'm 2 days off and then 5 days on. So there goes the kabhi I am a karma yogi. Sometimes I'm a karma yogi. Not at any other time. No. Sometimes means what? All the time. That is what it is. That is what yoga means. It's nishtha. This is what it is. Jnana yoga, karma yoga. The word yoga here means nishtha, a committed lifestyle. Similarly, you cannot say, I have taken sannyasa, but one day I get free to do whatever I want and whatever I want, go wherever I want and be however I want. No. Oh, but there is so much pressure. That's what the whole karma yoga is about. It's about letting go of the pressure. It's a very ingenious way of living. It's letting go of the pressure by staring. It says you have a staring contest with the pressure. You just go like this. The pressure is staring at you. You stare it down. And then it goes, okay, I'm gone. You win. Up till then, you have to have that resolve. So here too, that's why it's a nityam anutishtanti. Nityam means all the time, not kabhi kabhi anutishtanti. Nityam anutishtanti manavaha. And then, this is, anutishtanti means what? This teaching is pramana. This Vedanta is a way of life. They are living. We are living this. Manavaha means the children of Manu, human beings. This is not some kind of a morning practice, evening practice. No, all the time. This sadhana here called Karma Yoga, those who follow it properly, Shraddhavantaha Anusuyantaha. Shraddhavantaha Anusuyantaha means with Shraddha. Shraddha means looking upon the words of the Shastra with reverence. as unfolded by the teacher as true. Whether one immediately understands these words to be true or not, one at least says, okay, I'm taking it in good faith. This Shraddha extends, of course, to the words of the Bhagavad Gita, because they are the words of the Gita, is what? Words of the Lord. So, this is what is there. Shraddha is there all the time. And then, when you look at the Shastra with Shraddha, then, then based on that, it speaks to you because you have that reverence. Otherwise, it does not speak to you at all. And then, so the Shraddhavantaha Anusuyantaha, and then Anusuyantaha requires a little bit of this thing. Anusuyantaha means there is, it literally means jealousy. Jealousy. Anusuyantaha means jealousy. So that Shraddha is the antidote to jealousy. More about jealousy we'll talk, because Shraddha is the antidote which enables us to say these words are true. But my understanding is not in keeping with the words of the Shastra, so I am wrong. My understanding is not proper. If the Shraddha is not there, I will say, oh, this teaching is just one more thing I have pursued, I had a good time, and then now I'm beyond Vedanta. This is what one will say. Because when the Shraddha is not there, confusion is always there. Confusion walks in. If there is no Shraddha, then there is a invitation to confusion. If you want to give an invitation card to confusion, stop having Shraddha. It's as simple as that. Shraddha Bhakti here is what is important. And so therefore, when you accept that the Bhagavad Gita is teaching me something that I should understand, the Bhagavad Gita is wanting me to know something, and the Bhagavad Gita is making me divest from my ragadveshas, even though I don't want to do that. I want to be inside my ragadveshas, but the Bhagavad Gita is telling me to go beyond the ragadveshas and let go of the ragadveshas. It must be correct. This is the understanding. It must be correct. And then, so Anasuyantaha here means there is the word Asuya means jealousy, envy, and Matsara means again envy, jealousy. Like somebody has gained something, para utkarsham drishtva jayamanaha santapah Anasuya, Asuya. Asuya is parasya utkarsham drishtva. Seeing that somebody is, in a high place. And then jayamanaha santapah. What happens? I don't feel happy. What do I feel? I feel sad and anguished and angry and upset. Some uneasiness, and I'm afflicted by seeing somebody else's climbing to fame, climbing to, some kind of a glory. I'm not able to partake of that glory. Why? Because it is their glory, it's not my glory. And so therefore, this is what is called jealousy. This is the definition of jealousy. Asuya means intolerance, which is again another form of jealousy, because you find Asuya, what is the Shastric definition of Asuya? Guneshu dosha darshanam. Even in spite of all the gunas, one is looking for faults. Despite all the wonderful things, the virtues, one is keeping on finding faults. One is keeping on finding all kinds of faults even in the virtues. So this is what is the Asuya. So therefore, Anasuyantaha means going beyond trying to find defects in the Shastra and in the teacher. Why? So if I find defect in the Shastra, then I need not follow the Shastra. I can happily follow my own ragadveshas. If I find defect in the teacher, then I don't have to focus on the teacher. That is why people are very comfortable with dead teachers. Why? They don't have to deal with them on a day-to-day. Some voice is there, something is there, some recording is there. Once in a while they can do that. They don't have to deal with it day-to-day. Dealing with a teacher day-to-day means one has to be ready to be transformed. Even if the teacher has no agenda for you, your own desire for moksha makes you want to transform. And there is a quickening in the heart of that desire when you meet the teacher. You want to transform. And then, therefore, what? Therefore, if I don't, that longing to transform can be shut up nicely. Wow, how? The raga dveshas can give it a big, nice biff. Can biff this desire to want to transform, to want to emotionally grow, to want to shed, to want to be mentally more mature. All these things. There is a yearning. Naturally, that's my natural yearning. And here comes along the Shastra and the teacher wielding the Shastra. So there is this great desire to transform. What do I do to that desire? I hit it on the head. Who is this I? Ahankara, that is completely enmeshed with what? Ragadveshas. I don't want to transform, and so I want to transform, but I'm not going to allow myself to transform. No, because there is fear. What will happen? Where will I go? How will I do this? OMG, OMG, OMG. And so therefore, what do? I just say, this teacher sucks. Finished. Yeah, this teacher was okay for a little while. Yeah. Why? Because, it was all right. Now why is this teacher not okay? After 10 years you don't like this teacher anymore. Why? It's okay. I've outgrown this teacher. And then what? I've outgrown this teacher, one tells oneself. I can tell myself I have outgrown the teacher. I can tell myself, no, I'll go to another teacher. Why? Because I'm not getting what I want. What is it that you want? I want to continue following how I am, and I don't want to grow. I have decided not to grow. I have decided to continue to be in the same situation. And instead of attending to my longing, despite the ahankara saying something, there is a desire for growth, but still I don't want to do that. Therefore, the best way to come out of it is to find fault with the teacher, find defects in the Shastra. See, the Upanishad here says, Manasa eva aptavyam. Manasaiva eva aptavyam. Manasaiva aptavyam. But through the mind alone you can get this. It is said in one situation about the Atma, and then in the what is that? In the other one, in the Kena Upanishad, it says, Yan manasana manute, yenahur manomatam. There it says, the mind is not the author of this. And so, immediately there's a contradiction. I'm out. See, I outed the Upanishad. This Upanishad, which is full of contradictions, these Upanishads cannot possibly teach me. Who is me? Me, the finder outer of all these contradictions. So when I can find contradictions in the faultless Shastra, what to talk of the human being in the form of the teacher? So many faults I can find. And then this is what he says. That is why anasuyantaha here means the ones who don't get intolerant of the teacher. They don't find blemish. And then people will say the same thing. They will say karma yoga, shmarma yoga. What is this karma yoga? What have they accomplished? I have seen many karma yogis. They are not doing better than me. Like that they will say. But here, those who have Shraddha in the vision of the Shruti are different. They accept karma yoga and they understand that one has to grow emotionally to gain this knowledge, and then they will also get liberated by releasing the karma. Tepi karma bhihi muchyante. When they gain antahkarana shuddhi, when they emotionally grow, they grow enough to keep with the Shastra and understand I am the non-separate from the cause of the universe. Jagat Karanam Brahma. So then, te api muchyante. So, te api means the karma yogis are also, they are not second rate here. The only difference is the sannyasis are following it full time, and then the karma yogis are preparing themselves for the knowledge. There may be a little time lag with reference to gaining the knowledge, but then they are also mumukshus. They also gain liberation, not just the sadhus and sannyasis. And then because they are there, with Shraddha. Shraddha, again, later on it's going to be said, Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. So the Shraddha towards the Shastra, towards the teachers, makes a very big difference in how the knowledge is processed, in how the knowledge is received, how the knowledge is processed, and how the knowledge speaks to one. The knowledge will only speak when I allow it to speak. More we'll see next time. And now this is the last class. We are going on holiday break. Let me see here. When will the next class be? Because I have some travel coming up. And so sometime in January, let me announce that. And it will be there on all the, WhatsApp groups, the announcement. So January, yeah, so we will start from January 6th onwards, okay? January 6th onwards we will start. So we will take a 3-week break, and then happy holidays to everybody. And then if possible, I will try to post Upadesha Saram. I don't know the situation of the internet there, but at some point it will be on YouTube. You can enjoy that for the holiday offering. Thank you very much. Om Tat Sat. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you.